You probably have someone like this in your life. That person who seems almost invisible online. In a world that's basically screaming for constant updates, they just stay silent. No selfies, no big announcements, no check-ins. It's a really fascinating choice, and believe me, it goes way deeper than you might think.
So let's really get into this. The big question we're exploring here is why. In a world that literally rewards attention, why would someone deliberately choose to opt out? And it's not about being behind the times or anything like that. As we're about to see, psychology suggests this behavior isn't random at all. Actually, it reveals a surprising amount about a person's confidence, their mindset, and their emotional intelligence. For this explainer, we're going to call this person the social media ghost. And we're going to break down the psychology behind this choice. What we'll find is that it's often rooted in some incredibly grounded and, well, self-aware reasons.
Right off the bat, this totally challenges our first impressions. We might assume these people are shy or insecure, maybe even antisocial. But the psychological reality, it's often the complete opposite. They tend to be more grounded, deeply self-aware, confident, and, as we'll discover, pretty wise. And that brings us to our first major point. It's a conscious decision to prioritize privacy over popularity. It's not that they have something to hide, it's that they have something they want to protect. And that something is their inner peace. Psychologists actually have a term for this, a high privacy orientation. All it really means is they place a high value on controlling their own personal narrative. It's not about being antisocial, not at all. It's about protecting their mental and emotional space from all the noise and judgment of the online world. And here's where we see a key difference. While a lot of people are looking for validation through likes and comments, these individuals, they rely on self-validation. Their growth, their happiness, it's private, almost sacred. They don't need to broadcast their life to feel good about living it, which is a subtle but incredibly powerful sign of inner security. You see, this sense of privacy isn't coming from a place of fear. It's actually built on a deep-seated confidence that doesn't need an audience to exist. It's a confidence that's anchored from within. So this quiet confidence, it has several hallmarks. Psychologists talk about a strong self-concept clarity, which basically means they just know who they are. They have secure self-esteem, and they operate from an internal locus of evaluation. That's a fancy way of saying they judge themselves by their own standards, not what other people think. And because of that, they're just less approval-seeking. They're firmly anchored in their own life. This quote just sums it up perfectly. It's not a fear of being seen. It's a kind of maturity where the need to be constantly seen has just faded away. They don't need applause because their life isn't a performance. Okay, so this leads them to a very intentional choice. They totally understand the digital world, and they decide to make a trade. They trade that potential for widespread attention for something they value way more, and that's peace of mind. To really get this trade, we've got to talk about something called social comparison theory. It's this idea that we're constantly measuring our own worth against other people's online highlight reels. The social media ghost is super aware of this trap and consciously decides to just step away from that endless and honestly often damaging cycle of comparison. I mean, when you stop and think about it, the costs of being constantly visible online are pretty high, right? There's the constant comparison, a distorted sense of reality, increased anxiety, and this relentless pressure to perform. Even the most joyful private moments can start to feel like they need to be packaged up for public consumption. But then, on the other side of that trade-off, just look at what's gained. By choosing peace, they gain authenticity and a much deeper focus. They can give their undivided attention to what actually matters, which leads to greater mental clarity and way more meaningful, real-world connections. And this brings us to our final and maybe the most powerful idea of all. It's about completely reframing what silence actually means. It's not absence. It's not insecurity. It's a space where real growth and real mastery happen. This is such a critical distinction. While others are busy posting, these individuals are busy doing. They're creating, they're building, they're living. They aren't off the grid, they're just on their own path, focused on who they're becoming, not who they're showing the world they are. You can almost see their behavior as a kind of strategy for success. Step 1, opt out of all the distracting noise. Step 2, focus on the actual work. Step 3, build and create in silence. And step 4, check in with themselves, not with strangers online. Mastery in any field, it really requires that kind of undivided attention. So while our culture might tell you that being quiet means you're falling behind, the opposite is often true. because they are doing while so many others are just posting. They're not just keeping up. A lot of the time, they're moving so much further ahead.
So after looking at all this, what's the one big idea we should really walk away with when we think about the social media ghost? What does this choice truly signify?
It's this: true power doesn't always need a megaphone, and real, genuine growth doesn't require a public audience. There is immense strength and progress to be found in quiet focus and private dedication.
And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. In a world that's just obsessed with visibility, the social media ghost reminds us of a simple, powerful truth. You don't need to be seen to be significant.